Weekly Driver podcast gets support from AmericanMuscle.com, your late model Mustang and F-150 authority, bringing you the hottest products and top-notch customer service for over a decade. No one makes it easier to modify your ride. Visit AmericanMuscle.com today for your chance to win a 2018 Mustang RTR Spec 3.
Welcome back to the Weekly Driver podcast. My name is James Rea. My co-host is Bruce Aldrich, as always. This week we're going to talk about two very popular and polarizing individuals in the automotive world. Elon Musk, the founder and owner of Tesla Motors, and Danica Patrick, a race car driver who has decided after next year's Daytona 500 and Indianapolis 500 that she's going to retire. Both of those individuals are very prominent in their respective worlds, and we're going to talk about what they have going on and our thoughts about those people who have major fan clubs and probably an equal amount of detractors in their world. So welcome, Bruce. How are you?
Good, James. Good to talk. Should we talk about Danica first?
You bet. Let's go ahead. I know that you and your wife follow race cars, sports, motorsports, all different kinds of motorsports, much more than I do. But of course, I know of her. So, what do you think about her announcing her retirement in general? And I think that there's a clip that we've both seen, and it got a lot of attention. So, give me your thoughts on her announcing her retirement and why she chose to do so now.
Well, I think I don't mind her leaving. She really didn't get results. Is she a bad driver? No. Everybody at that level is a good driver. However, the results aren't there. She had 190 career starts in NASCAR, and that's a pretty good time. She's not a beginner anymore. And, well, this year she finished 28th in the points. In fact, last weekend she crashed out again. She's got a lot of crashes under her belt. Why that is, who knows. This time, this most recent one was apparently a cut tire, and it put her into the wall. Ultimately, the car caught on fire, and she had to bail out of it. So that was her last race, except the two next year.
You know, the thing about Danica is she brought a lot of attention to the sport, and she did have some success. I mean, she was she won in Indianapolis. She won an Indy race in Japan maybe a decade or so ago now. She won a lot of other events, but as you also said, there were some events where she just didn't have that skill level in the last, let's say, 5 or 6 years. She didn't have, I don't know, maybe a top 10 or 2 along the way, maybe not even that. But in terms of her popularity, obviously she's very attractive. She brought a lot of attention to the sport, and so we can't hold that against her. She marketed herself very well. She has a lot of outside interest. She probably brought people into that sport and watched it that may not have been there before.
She brought sponsored dollars to the sport, that's for sure. That's how she got in there.
And so what do you think about next year? She's announced that she's going to do the Daytona 500 and the Indy 500, but we're not quite sure, nor has it been announced, what sponsors are going to be supporting her in those her 2 last races of her career.
Well, it's still unknown at this point. She got into NASCAR racing. She brought on board GoDaddy tech firm out of Silicon Valley.
Yes, that's correct.
And then, so that was really good up to 2016, I think was her last year with GoDaddy. So then she had a year this last year with just other odd sponsors. So her sponsorship dried up. So they didn't renew her contract. So she has to move on.
So next year, Daytona comes first, and she'll have the current sponsor that she has for that race. But it's Indy that seems to be the unknown. How is she going to compete in Indy, and for what sponsors? We don't know.
Yeah, I don't think we know a sponsor even, or what manufacturer or what racing team in the NASCAR, and we certainly don't know in Indy, although there's rumored to be Chip Ganassi in Indy cars.
Okay. So there's another part of Danica we haven't touched on. I mentioned that she's obviously very attractive, and if you follow motorsports, there have been other women in the sports, no one as prominent as she's been, and some have had other success. But when Danica does something controversial or she shows her emotion, there are people who might say, well, you know, it's Danica Patrick and she's a bitch and she's always has been. But if it's a guy and he gets out of his car and he charges another driver or he gets emotional, nobody says that. So let's talk about the polarizing part of her is that she's probably the most successful and attractive and outspoken person in the sport, and she's leaving. But did that affect other drivers, do you think? Was there a negative part to the sport when she became so prominent?
I think there was. Here she comes in, a female, and basically what's always been a man's sport, and she comes in with a big high-powered sponsor and a ride, and that probably misplaced somebody else.
Yes.
Somebody else didn't get the ride who might have more talent, but she brought in dollars. She brought in dollars
with her sexuality. And so I guess that there was some, it must have been some resentment. And maybe, I don't know, I don't follow the sport, maybe you've heard, I wonder if the other drivers are saying, well, geez, thank goodness she's leaving. Now we get back to the sport, and other guys are going to get a chance, or the dollars will be spread more evenly. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I have a friend who's got what they call a hard card. In other words, he's a guy that's behind the scenes there at NASCAR. Mm-hmm. And the talk was she was never a good driver, and they never really liked her.
Okay.
Back in the shops,
Now
so who knows?
Who knows? Well, we all many people, and I think I saw the YouTube video a couple of times. It's got a vast amount of views so far. And when she announced her retirement last week, she got very emotional and she cried. And so we're gonna listen to part of that. And to me, I had mixed thoughts. I mean, if in my occupation or your occupation, maybe you have a retirement party, maybe you have a beer with a friend, or your wife throws you a party and you have a retirement party and everybody pats you on the back and brings you a gift and so forth. But she's been involved in the sport a very long time, but she got very, very emotional. And yet she's got her whole future is lined up. As they say, her future's ahead of her. She's talked about being an analyst on television. She's got a new book out she's a phenomenal cook and has these recipes in the book. She practices yoga. She's got probably a bunch of different offers. So to me, her announcement seemed a little bit disingenuous. What are your thoughts?
I didn't catch that, but let's listen to the tape.
Okay.
So this will be my last season as a full-time driver. My sister told me I was supposed to get emotional. I said I wouldn't. But anyway. But I'm grateful for all the opportunities. I'm thankful for Dale and Kelly and Bob Parsons from GoDaddy for getting me into NASCAR. Thank you to Tony and Gene.
Okay, so we listened to that clip, and I have to, be honest. I've been a sports writer for 40 years now, and I'm a little bit cynical, and I'm a little bit of a curmudgeon, but I've heard a lot of these speeches where people retire, and maybe I can learn a little bit of lesson. I mean, she's obviously passionate about what she did. She put her whole life into it, and I'm not going to take it away from her, but the other side of me says, you're a pretty fortunate human being, and, why are you crying? And you got a whole nother chapter or 2 or 3 or 4 in your life, and just be thankful for your last 2 rides and go for it. And to me, I had a hard time thinking that it was sincere.
Well, I don't know. I thought it was sincere, but I just had a hard time listening to it. These are my heroes out here. These are the jet jockeys. These guys are invincible. They're courageous and they're fearless. And then to hear this, I don't know. It troubled me a little.
Okay, all right.
Initially, anyhow. But then again, look who was crying, who won the championship last weekend, too, Truex Jr. Mm-hmm. He was crying.
He was crying, okay. Well, I guess that's true. That's a point well made. Now, looking forward to next year, if she does these two races, when she does these two races, if it goes according to plan, what do you think the buildup is going to be of this? I think people who have never watched a motorsports event will be watching and looking at this end of a long career, and she's one of a kind, and she's done some great things. I think it's going to attract a lot of people into that race, and then a short while later, Indy, which is equally popular, maybe, I don't know, then that's going to bring a whole other set of people because it's going to be your last race. So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what the spectacle or the pomp and circumstance, if you will, of those last two events.
I think it's going to be huge. I think that's going to be the whole buildup. That's the whole new sponsor. Somebody got together with some teams and created this idea. Hey, how about she runs the two biggest races, one in NASCAR and the other one in IndyCar, and see how she does, and we'll market her, and oh my goodness, there's going to be a lot of commercials and whatnot. I hope she does well.
Yeah, I know that they always say Super Bowl, people pay $1 million for 30 seconds, and so I think at those two events, which have vast sponsorships, I bet you there's going to be some major bucks for that 30-second commercial you're going to buy that's going to show, before the race, during the race, after the race. It's going to be quite a marketing field day, I think, for those two outfits.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, another person in the automotive industry who is equally prominent and also controversial is Elon Musk. And Elon Musk, of course, it's Palo Alto-based Tesla Motors, and he has the Tesla, and it's done phenomenally well in a limited way, with being the first electric supercar, and I think one or two publications called it the safest car ever made. But it's also a polarizing thing, and he hasn't lived up to some of the promises that he's made with his Model 3, that the $35,000 or so-called $35,000 car. Last week he made this really grandiose announcement of the next generation of the Roadster, but that came as a surprise, because while he was really there was to announce his electric truck. And so he made these big announcements while Elon also has, I believe, between $450,000 and $500,000 deposits of $1,000 each for a car that he's promised for quite a while now, and has never materialized.
The Model 3.
The Model 3. So, Bruce, you obviously heard about that announcement. You followed it. What are your thoughts in general about Tesla, and then the thoughts about where he's going with his company and all these things? He's got promises that may never come to pass.
Well, he has a lot of irons in the fire, that's for sure. He's got electric trucks now. He's got a tunneling company. He's got SpaceX, solar energy. He's really trying to be the battery production guy of the world. So he makes all these. He's a visionary, that's for sure. He's got these big ideas. I don't know. The Model 3, that's a black eye to me. Mm-hmm. He keeps promising, and he hasn't produced so far. I was just looking at his website. Now he's talking, they don't have a date still, but they're talking about the Model 3 rolling out real soon. And guess what? The price isn't going to be $35,000. It's going to be $49,000. These are going to be the loaded cars with the big battery and everything else. And anyway, that's $49,000, not $35,000.
Yeah, that's quite something. Do you think early on that he thought his obviously a visionary and smart and has a vast amount of money to spend, but do you think that he saw the Tesla to change the automotive industry because of its performance, or to change the automotive industry in terms of being an electric car, and he has environmental concerns and the small footprint and all that? Do you think he saw it in both ways, or do you think he was short-sighted, and then when only the elites could buy the Tesla, that he thought, well, gee, I'm not going to really change the environment too much if only 5,000 people are buying this car? Do you think he thought about it in both ways, or he just didn't think it through well enough and somebody finally pointed it out to him?
I don't know. This guy's got so much money, he doesn't have to do things that make sense, which is kind of cool. As long as he's spending his own money,
yes,
do what you want to do. But when he starts taking it in the form of deposits and making these promises, that's where I find him a little troubling. If he let him go spend his own money, if he wants to dig a new underground next to the 405 freeway in LA, hey, go for it. But I hope that he doesn't get municipality money involved in that.
That's right. I remember a couple of years ago, I hadn't thought about this for a while, but he talked about the Tesla EV stations and having it be across the country, which also hasn't materialized. But he made this promise that he was going to take believe he has 5 sons, and he was going to take all of his sons and himself in the big Tesla, and they were going to go across country, and they were going to plan it out, and they were going to do a video casting and a blog and images and talk to people along the way, and they were going to show that you could take a Tesla across the country with his proprietary charging stations. That never occurred either, as far as I know. But they made a big production out of it, and it just kind of faded into the...
He loves the media spotlight, and he knows how to control the media. He gives them little tidbits here and there, and these wild claims and these ideas that, they're all okay ideas, and
yes.
Go ahead, spend your own money, but don't ask for other people's.
That's right. So if you do the math with, let's just say for round numbers, you had $500,000 to $1,000 deposits. That's $500 million. I'm not a math guy. I am a little bit of a math guy, but not at those numbers. And I'm not a banker or a financial guy. But where does that money go? If you have $500 million in the bank, is it generating 5% interest? Is it gone to some other project? How does that big financing work like that? And I'm pretty sure it's legal, but it doesn't look ethical to me. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't know. He's into solar energy, and that's not really been panning out as far as making money anyway. Mm-hmm. People are buying solar panels, but I don't know that they're getting ahead of the utility companies. And SpaceX, he wants to colonize Mars, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
Okay, I'm not quite sure when, but
I'm not signing up for that.
That's a little out there. I think a lot of these things are a little out there. He's trying hard. The Model S, I don't know how many are sold. Way less than he thought.
Yeah.
He was up in the, thousands and thousands, and there's not that many out there, mostly in California. That's
right. And we talked earlier about this. We went to the LA Auto Show last year when they introduced the Chevy Bolt, which was going to be a modestly priced electric vehicle with a 240 mile range, which I thought at that point this is going to change the whole landscape. I thought it was going to be just take off. I haven't really heard if it has or not, but you were saying that because Musk makes these big announcements that maybe it's a detriment to the other companies. Yeah.
I think, he made that announcement and started taking deposits well before he was ready to go with his. But GM was getting close to getting theirs finished, so that was his plan, and it worked. I think it probably worked very well.
Yeah.
People with the $1,000 deposits are still waiting.
Right.
We're saying Bolt, by the way, with a B, not the Volt.
Not the Volt. Thank you.
The pure electric Bolt.
Yeah,
there we
almost did it again.
Yeah.
And we saw that car, by the way. And just as an aside, if I was in the market for a car, that would be one that I would look at in terms of environmental issues, being able to drive the car from, let's say, Sacramento to Lake Tahoe and back if it got 238 miles on a charge. That's a car that could change the industry. You get rebates from the feds, you get rebates from California, you get to go in the HOV lanes. It's the real deal.
Right.
And anybody can afford it.
It's kind of what Musk has promised, but I've seen one on the road.
Is that right?
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going over too well.
And I also think you can make a comparison between Elon Musk and the guy that I've written about quite a bit and talked about, and Paul Elio, who has his 3-wheel vehicle called the Elio that has never come to fruition either. It's not the same car. It's not a high-performance car, but he had claimed 100 miles, top end 100 miles an hour, 84 miles to the gallon, $6,800 starting price point, and he changed that to $7,400. He promised 1,500 jobs in Louisiana. He promised. We've both seen several prototypes, and that car has never happened either. He has about 65,000 people who have made a deposit between $100 and $1,000. Those are non-refundable deposits, so that money is gone, as opposed to Musk, who has claimed that you could get your $1,000 back. But they're two, in some ways, they're both kind of guys who just, I don't know if they're just irresponsible or if, I don't think the Elio is ever going to happen. Obviously, Elon Musk has made successful cars that have changed the industry, but I'm comparing them because they're guys who just say, this is what's going to happen, and people give them money. Well, on with the hopes that it might happen.
It almost seems like it's almost a religion, and these people buy into these dreams. You know, everybody has a dream, right? I guess,
right.
You know, so that's fine. And he's the Pied Piper. He's extracting dollars from people.
Yeah, we watched a little video of Musk when he makes his announcement. People in the audience were, just as you said, he was a guru. He was a Pied Piper. He's a guy that there was a movie that came out a little while ago about following people around with a camera on you, and it was the thing that took after Microsoft or the other companies or Google, and how you become part of a cult. And just by that 30-second clip we watched, it looked like a cult, and he was on stage and the master's going to speak, and it just looked like
every time he opens his mouth for any words, it's clapping and cheering.
Yes.
Well, let's listen to a piece.
Okay, great.
At 0 to 60. It'll be the fastest to 100 miles an hour. 4.2 seconds to 100 miles an hour. Be faster than that jet over there. Okay. It'll do the quarter mile in 8.9 seconds. This will be the first time that any car has broken 9 seconds. Any production car has broken 9 seconds in a quarter mile. Yeah. These are all world records. Okay, this is what we're achieving in the prototype. I wouldn't say what the actual top speed is, but it's above 250 miles an hour. The range, this is going to have a 200 kilowatt hour battery pack.
Do you think that, as some other people have pointed out from some of the really prominent automotive sites, there are several, but I read 2 or 3 stories that people said that he made this announcement basically as a diversion from all the other things he's got going on in Tesla, with personnel problems, with cars not being built, with maybe his other companies. So he's smart enough to realize, if I make this big stink about these things that I'm going to make, that people will kind of forget that I got all this other stuff going on that has not come to fruition at all.
Well, there's that. It's a distraction.
Yes.
Heck, if a guy can make a car run 8.9 in the quarter mile, which half of these techies in that audience don't even know what that is anyway, probably.
Right.
But if he can make those claims, and he's going to do that, then obviously he can make a electric car, like he says, the Model 3 for $35,000. Just give the guy a little time. He's got a lot of things to do. He's got a full plate here, but he can do it easy, because look what he can do.
That's right. And then also he had the audacity, in my opinion, to say, when I build this car in 2020, and if you want to be one of the first 1,000 people to have this car, it's not going to cost you $200,000. It's going to cost you $250,000, and the money's got to be up front when you put your order in. So, to me, this is just one more level of this guy with obviously a huge ego. Obviously, he has changed the automotive industry, but I think that part of it was the one that I said, I can't believe any of this. To me, this is just a Pied Piper, as you said earlier, or just a guy selling elixir. I don't believe any of it now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he should be on like Kickstarter or GoFundMe site with this video and asking people to pony up cash. I wouldn't ask for $250,000.
No.
This would be what people would do $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 all day long. Right. I'll bet you. There's enough disciples of Elon Musk out there, but this $250,000, he's got to have a lot of rich friends.
He's got to have a lot of rich friends. Well, that's great. It was great to have Bruce talk about 2 people in the automotive industry that are very different, but in some ways similar, with ego and prominence and success on some level. So thanks for joining us on the Weekly Driver podcast. Don't forget to visit my website, theweeklydriver.com, and we'll talk to you next week.
The Weekly Driver podcast receives support from AmericanTrucks.com, your late model Silverado, Sierra, Ram, and F-150 online aftermarket retailer, bringing you all of the hottest parts, from accessories to lift kits, from wheels to tires and winches. AmericanTrucks.com has the knowledge and know-how to make your wildest dreams come to reality. Visit AmericanTrucks.com for your chance to win $17,760 in upgrades for your truck.